I saw exposure. That was the first word I thought of. And I'm thinking of exposure as, it was difficult because I couldn't link the banana leaf to the word exposure, but I could not give up the banana leaf.
20 years of words and then 21st year to reflect back, which is a long time when I really think about it. And this is why we have to kind of call it a finale, because it's sort of like this era is done. You know, when John passed away, you know, there's a huge chunk that's missing, even though, you know, he hasn't been present, but he has. Yes. And he was supposed to be here.
He was going to be here.
That's what really killed me, because he was supposed to be here.
And I said to him, last time we talked, I said, oh, this is great, you're gonna be there, you can be at that table with Hitomi. And he said, no. He said, I'm a participant.
And you know, John and I both agreed that this is a place that we have to do our book, because we love this place so much. And you know, it's just evolved since, and that's why we're here. And I mean, that's the reason why we're here, Earth, Mind, Spirit. Also, you know, we in the search learned that spiral is usually often referred to the two-dimensional. The helical is the three-dimensional. Helical is the other word, but that's three-dimensional. But you know what? That's what was so. It just kept growing. It's kind of like we're looking at spiral and we're looking at this, but then it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So I'm thinking, like, what are words that's related to spiral that you can talk about, that you can use with spiral that would create and trigger interest to somebody else who doesn't know it? You know, because we have to be really mindful of that. If you want to be heard, if you want to be seen.
You know, I went through the definitions, and I always do that when I start with a word. I try to look at the definitions and make sure that I really am using the word like it's intended to be used in it. And I think that it boils down in my head, the whole is something that's complete. It's the whole enchilada. And that's why I chose the universe for the cover of my little flyer. I thought that it was about as big and broad a complete as I could come up with.
My inspiration for this was Ma. The Japanese concept of Ma is something that relates to all aspects of life. It has been described as a pause in time, an interval or emptiness in space. Ma is the fundamental time and space life needs to grow. If we have no time, if our space is restricted, we cannot grow. How we spend our time and space and shape the space we live in directly impacts our progress. These principles are universal. When applied effectively, they enhance the way we think and how we engage with our surroundings. We can visually identify the meaning of Ma from its Japanese kanji symbol. Ma combines door and sun. Together, these two characters depict a door through the crevice of which the sunlight peeps in. This meaning of space, I think, really, like Taos in itself is the space for us to be creative. It's kind of the stage that this kind of play of what we do every year and what we go through kind of takes place. So literal spaces are empty until people are in them and create the meaning within them.
One thing that comes to my mind is all of you, talking to you one-on-one as a group has really facilitated cracks in my brain. It's enabled me to access areas that weren't open to me, that I had closed off or never opened. And so those cracks and those spaces now just are there for use that I really appreciate that. My word is interplay, and I was not here for interplay at the time, so it was before that I started coming to Taos. But I looked at the word and it just was like poof. I mean, it just is a huge word. And so I thought this would be a great word. I think interplay just pretty much fits in everything that we do, whether it's artistic or whether it is just tangible life.
I remember the challenge of each one. Sometimes, like I remember Lottie hated Edge that year, and then she really got into it, and we all kind of had years like that, you know, like, oh no, is that really? Oh. And then we all were challenged and loved it. I landed on the word abstraction because, or abstract, I started thinking about, well, they're all connected, but it really, you can see abstraction in almost everything we do, especially in this workshop. Taking bits and pieces of the art, and you have to keep some of the elements, but it may not be recognizable to anybody as anything, you know, as that art at all, but you have to still have the elements that connect it, that speak to it. And for me, that's abstraction.
This episode that I'm about to embark on, which I would call an episode rather than a lesson, starts out with a mistake, which will expose the true me. I have it called the 21st, and I think it's the 20th. So you can correct that on your paper. But you could write 40th if you wanted to be more impressive. I had to find something to do to keep the creative juices flowing. And so I volunteer at the Indianapolis Museum of Art. And that's been one of the best things I've ever done, because it has lifted my viewpoint of art to a little higher level. And that's how I came to exposure. So before I answer your question, I have another thing to say. Some of you might remember, even though Hitomi doesn't, that when I came to the exposure that year, I had no time to prepare and I didn't have a single thing. So I flew into Albuquerque, got in the car and drove to Santa Fe and stopped at the library. And this is all I had. When I got there, that's all I had. It was just the definition. I didn't have a thing to do. I didn't have a concept. And so I'm thinking, you know, things always work out. I believe that. And I drove on to Taos and I'm just like, well, we're getting close. Something's gonna happen, it's bound to. And so I wanted to, I don't know what I needed, but I thought I needed something enough to go to the grocery store. And I went through the grocery store and I got my inspiration. And I came to the lecture with a sack of oranges. And I asked everybody to peel an orange to expose the interior.
So my word is construction, deconstruction. And I realized that out of all the words that were given to us, I gravitated to this word because I do a lot of this. This is kind of my go-to thing. I love to create with very simple
product, whatever is available to me at the time when I am developing my concepts. I have a 7-year-old granddaughter now, and today is her birthday. And so I'm very lucky to be here to be able to spend it with you. But she has loved to watch me create. And so this is the next venture for me, to be able to share things with her. And one of the things that we love to do is to make booklets. So I started to discover zines. Has anybody ever heard of zines? That was started in the 1940s. It's your signature piece to send out to the world, share with whoever you want. But when we deconstruct, because we're changing the energy, then we start to develop another story. It starts to turn to something else.
So we're going to do an exercise all together. You're going to make 3 different things with the craft paper, and the colored squares are the background. If you don't like the colors that you got, you can choose some other ones.
The more interesting treatment of the apertures.
The
Right.
holes, the openings, yeah.
Yeah.
So that was the other thing that I came to, now that you mentioned it. Is there an edge to the hole? Can edge define the negative space or the void as much as it can the positive? So we have an edge of an opening.
I'm talking about vessels. So vessel to me is something that is a container, is anything that holds things, holds your spirit and holds your mind. So my interpretation of vessel is about anybody.
I don't know why I picked paradox. I don't know that much. I mean, I really don't think about it, except I feel like my life is a paradox, and life in general is a paradox. But the definition that I loved was a statement that seems self-contradictory, but in reality expresses a possible truth. I've got 8 creatives talk about the paradox of comfort. And I didn't copy this for all of you because it was like 14 pages, but it's really worth reading because they give different artists, give their view on the paradox of comfort. It's not easy to be original. It feels like everything has been done or said before. While to some extent that might be true, what often differentiates an idea that feels similar to something that has been executed before is the person behind it. 20 years ago, John and Hitomi had a vision. As I look back over the words, wonderful memories came flooding back. While there are many noteworthy memories, here are a few of my favorites. Martha asking, "What the hell is this?" And the next, Jim Martin as a chicken. You mentioned that yesterday when he came out of his, okay, whatever he was, I called it a chicken. Connie's apricot jacket. Wayne's bubble wrap. Jim Johnson's bread vessel. Frank's duct tape. Cheryl and Connie's clay firing stories. Jessica's dress. As I said, these are just a few. There are so many more. We've had some of the most incredible Friday excursions. There has been much laughter, great debates, tons of sharing, amazing talent and creativity, and yes, a few tears. This conference gave a whole new meaning to thinking outside the box. Thank you to everyone for what you brought to this conference. You are all amazing. You can read the rest.
I felt, wow, important word to be the florist, and it was very difficult to choose from there. But at the same time, when I started the floral design to learn, I was more into the shape or design. So Connie and Cheryl said, you should come. And so I was so easy to, okay, and then jump into here. But wow, find out we have to study about talk about the words. That was actually you brought me to different stage, which is very hard, but very appreciated too. Maybe first time to hear about transparent. At the beginning, I couldn't understand what's its exact that meaning, and then more airy, maybe, or those kind of image just came. So this time, I wanted to find out a little more deep about what is transparent.
So, can you guess who I am? All right, right into construction deconstruction now.
Look at that abstraction.
So I'd like to reflect. I was very inspired with 3 artists that I got to see this year. It was Judy Chicago, Andy Warhol, and Robert Rauschenberg. I have to tell everybody, I don't know if everybody heard, but I wrote Judy a letter and invited her to the thing, but I haven't heard from her yet. So maybe tomorrow she'll come. My favorite is called Combines. And these, I'm gonna pass these around. These are some of his combines. And this is, so what Rauschenberg and also Andy Warhol were doing was bringing the art world and the everyday world together. So that's what combines are. The deal about the pop art is moving art into the everyday world. So he says that anybody can drink a Coke. The President of the United States can drink a Coke. It's the same Coke that somebody who has very little money can. So it's an every man's thing. So he started making these silk screens of every man's thing. So, you know, it all comes around in a circle. Here I was talking about graffiti last year, and now I'm talking about Andy Warhol, and, you know, we're talking about graffiti. So this is what I'd like to end on. I think I did it all. I want to talk about camouflage. Camouflage can be talked about in different ways. So the people who protect us wear camouflage. Camouflage is thought of as keeping something from you, or kind of hiding in a veil, or something like that. So Warhol, I think it was a commission. He was commissioned to do The Last Supper. Warhol was pretty religious, unbeknownst to a lot of people, but he was. And his Last Supper was probably like as long as this, almost this wall. And he screen printed that, and over the entire thing was camouflage. And there's a lot you could talk about camouflage in our day and age too. How do we, you know, transparent is a real trick word now. Everything has to be transparent. But do we really is there a lot of camouflage going on too? And everybody's wearing camouflage now. I mean, it's like, okay, why are you wearing camouflage? So I think there's some kind of discussion that we could have about camouflage, what it really means, or what it means to us in art. What do you think? Are you with me on the camouflage?
I knew I wanted to do like this color palette, and I brought all the components knowing that it would work somewhere, and it just happened to be that was the perfect spot.
It actually evolved because I didn't think it was going to be linear, but I found this at the flea market, this craft that I used to make it suspended. So the whole premise is everything in here is either natural or natural touch by man.
My image is I chose this board tree is perfect match with middle. And then I brought some eucalyptus.
So this is kind of one of those pictures from, you know, when you're driving back to Santa Fe and there's that section where the river is, and it's just bright band.
I cut it in one continuous spiral, and I made it quite organic in shape, so thin and thick.
Spiral was obviously my inspiration. Spiral is what started everything. Spiral's been with me for the last 20 years, so it's really a very important piece. And it just happens to be some of the core process to which I do all my middling work.
This is a paper. The planes, the edges of them change as you go up or down or around.
Spanish moss with bullion wire. Then, of course, I deconstructed.
And it's supposed to be, it's a paradox.
Yeah.
It's a true paradox.
Amazing Grace or Will the Circle Be Unbroken? So for John, this one is a combine, and it's Will the Circle Be Unbroken? So it's records, and the circle down there.
I was having a hard time this time knowing it's like the final one. So I've kind of been battling that in my head of like, what does that mean? And bringing it back to like fall, I'm thinking of it as it's an end for now, but now there's a new beginning. So not to like be so like, this is the final. So for me, it's like all about showing as much light from inside at this moment. And then there'll be some peace, and then it'll start again.
Well, folks, I want you to know first and foremost that I'm over my banana thing. Oh my gosh. I never dreamed I could pull this off. I knew what I wanted to do. I had complete confidence in the banana leaves. And I went back to what Casey Eskridge said in that little brainstorming session we had when he talked about starting with one and letting that plant the seed and not deviate from that. And I tried to think what was the single most important thing that I could think of that had to do with this design. And it came to me instantly, balance. And I think that's true in the real world of dancing as well as this. And that's what worried me the most was proportion. I've never done anything where I had to do the proportions of a human. And so, I look at that and I don't think I did it. I just can't. One thing about banana leaves is that the longer they're dry, the more they curl. And so these were a little more curly than what I would have liked, but I had no control over that. And I tried to choose leaves that could follow the direction of the limbs and that sort of thing. I laid out, as many leaves as I could put on the table. And then I just picked what was going to fit, I'd hold it up. And the funny thing is that I got permission to cut the leaves off of some banana trees that were tucked in between two greenhouses at the museum where nobody walked or saw them. But all the plants that were out in front, I had no permission. So I called Bill McKinley in Texas because we had some banana trees out behind the Hort building and asked him if he could pick me some dried leaves because my grandson lives in Dallas and I was going to stop and see him. And his roommate has a business contact in College Station. So they just went down and picked up the leaves.
I've heard a story, I've heard it said, I've come to believe that love is a bet. Sometimes you win and sometimes you lose, and sometimes it calls you right in the move. Come to my table, come to my bed, go easy my hunger, easy my head. Bringing me fire, bringing me water, taking me high, taking me down. Give me your pretty, give me your messy, give me your happy, give me your sad. I may be staying, I may be going, I may be left, I may fall apart. Come to my table, come to my bed, go easy my hunger, easy my head. Bringing me fire, bringing me water, taking me high, taking me down. to my bed, go easy my hunger, easy my head. I'll bring you